Yeah. There's another. Oh yeah, I have. I actually had. Shit, I wish listed Dual Corp a while ago. Oh, nice. Okay. Uh, my wish list was perpetually a. I'm gonna keep an eye on that indie game. There's another one that dropped. I can't remember the name of it because it's in. I know it's in here. Um, it is the guy who did it, Stephen Molyneux, kind of a weirdo of because he everyone knows about him, just how much he liked to lie and kind of oversell. Peter, yeah, Stephen Molyneux is a different guy. It was, but essentially, he is making, as he puts it, his last game, which is called Masters of Albion. Uh, and it's based off of like I think it's Black and White is the old God game. So I think he made that one. And so yeah, it's a God game that also it. I always wanted to play it. I just never got my hands on it. Uh, yeah, you have complete control over making your city and going through all this, making a sick God game, and then night falls and you have to do combat, but you can possess any one of your heroes and like fight as a third-person action game. So you have like an
We're live. Welcome everyone to Table Talk, where we talk all things tabletop. I'm your host, the Bella Gamer, with my co-host Glue Boy.
Hello.
And I'm this is gonna feel like the most like Anima pilled chat we're gonna have. But I think there's some really interesting things to discuss when talking about the idea that Anima Beyond Fantasy might just be one of the best TTRPGs out there.
If anything, it is certainly a tabletop game I think you can learn the most if you're trying to be super into the hobby or are trying to learn how to make stuff yourself. I think there's a lot of benefits to having Anima. It's somewhere on your radar.
And there's aspects to it that I feel like, again, it's gonna be an interesting conversation because we're gonna talk about what I think the game itself does really, really right that honestly almost no other TTRPG does. But before we do, let's have a little bit of small talk, mostly because, I want to give Alex a chance to talk about the things he's into or he's doing right now before we get into the subject, which I know we're going to talk about at length. So, Alex, what are you up to?
I mean, other than just I'm making a video, got something in the works, and I'm in that schedule of a full-time job where all I do is I work, I do some YouTube stuff, and then I don't work. I just kind of chill. That new Knives Out movie's pretty good. Watched that last night. Pretty sick.
Yeah.
I got a video on Trench Crusade coming up because man, I need them to make something more, just more stuff for this dang game. Because we have, since I last did my big coverage of it, we've had 2 faction drops, and they're third-party design stuff. Third-party designs the rules and the models and stuff, and then they work alongside to make it canon. But I know the shit they got cooking is something just called the Path of Metamorphosis, and then another one is a Transylvanian vampire knights, because apparently Dracula is still alive in Trench Crusade.
Interesting.
Yeah, but it's they're not just gonna make him a full-on vampire. I think he's wearing weird magic armor or something, because all the promo art they have sketched out is really sick armor designs.
Yeah, I don't know. It feels like Trench Crusade slowed down significantly, but maybe that's just because they've released with so much stuff, and now it's just a process of making more content.
Yeah, they the first focus was to get everything into a 1.0, and then it is that thing of their Kickstarter did too well, so they have a lot of shit in the works. They have a whole campaign book that they need to work on, and they have a bunch of shipping that they need to do, and there's still a team of 3 people. I don't think they've hired on a permanent crew. So yeah, they have slowed down in their releases, and at least their community is still going strong. They've been doing a good job keeping the online space good, mainly because they have a lore guy. One of the YouTubers who did a lot for it is basically kind of partnered with them. He gets early access and early info, direct from the horse's mouth. But they've done a good job in that front and keeping in making it really accessible to play. Because that's the big kicker, is you can play this game basically for free. Because if you just have other minis or anything, as long as they share the same base size, you can just play Trench Crusade without spending $1 on the game, which is a real bonus.
Yeah. Definitely going to leave the Pathfinder 2, Pathfinder in general, route with Archive and Ethos.
Yeah. I think it's a better way of going, because you make your game as accessible as possible. It helps drag people in, and it also, I think, just looks better on you. I'm more willing to spend money for a company that actively feels like they don't want my money than I am for someone who's will nickel and dime you at every step of the way.
Yeah, I don't know. It's one of those things where I think there's certain pricing levels that it's beneficial versus not. For mini based games, like that's where you make your money, is the expensive thing. In a TTRPG, you can, it's $60. It's not a crazy amount, well, depending on the game, but it's like $60 is on the higher end. It's not a crazy amount, but it's an amount that some people might not have access to. So people are like, oh, well, some people will get into it and be like, oh man, I really wish I had these books. And other people might, but like mini games, they're almost, it's almost like, I could spend $400 on a handful of minis, or
Yeah.
I could play the game for free. And it's like it almost hits the human neurons of like just optimizing their time and efficiency. So I don't know.
It's the struggle for war games, because like I'll say Warhammer and just GW's way of doing it is probably the most money hungry way, because it is the most expensive one to do. Because every other game that they actually, even some of the other Games Workshop games, because Lord of the Rings is a very fun war game, but they make it as easy as possible to, like, from the box, once you build out your dudes, you can play the game. Like, you have full lists. Warhammer doesn't do that. All of those combat patrols and like all that, like, it's one, usually not a good list to bring. Like, the list just sucks and doesn't work together. My favorite is when they put in models that are actively really bad for your faction that they're trying to get you to play.
Yeah. The number of Xanagors I have.
Yeah, Xanagors, which are just worse cultists. Like,
yeah.
They're slightly tougher, but the point of them is that they're meat shields for your important units. But like, why would you take the more expensive meat shield? And then they have those kind of things. But then like there's a Star Wars one that is pretty good about it, because the Star Wars war game sets, they have a really fun option where they have all different scales of the war game. So you can literally play from galactic level, like warships, to dogfighting, to planet side fighting.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, the game itself is pretty cheap. I think the only other one I can think of is Bolt Action, and because of that, Conflict 43 or Conflict 47. Because those games, basically same game, they're just like, what if you use our cool World War II models in a alt history setting?
Yeah.
But like, that one is also on a bigger scale, but I think it's still cheaper to get into than Warhammer, because they keep increasing their prices every year by like a few bucks.
Yeah. So, like, I don't know. I think it's very much based on the thing. I think free access is one of those things that benefits products that are just so good that the people who are going to, who would buy your thing in the first place will do so anyway, despite it being free.
Yeah, and like, because I also have the bone to pick with Warhammer, because they sent a cease and desist to 2 of the routes people had of providing the rules in a really easy to view format. Like, Battlescribe was the big one, and that one was both cease and desisted and shut down because the guy who ran it wanted to get money out of people. And then he promptly learned that no one wanted that, and then he kind of killed the project. And then Warhammer tried to make their own, like, hey, we have our own Battlescribe. It works significantly worse.
Yeah,
like,
of course.
Why would I want to do this? Also, you have to pay for access to your rules, which means you have to have there's a special code in your physical book if you have that. And by the way, all tournaments actually tell you have to have the book version for any rule you're using, so that you can either come to that tournament with a single book, like you have the faction book plus the normal like core book, or you have 5 books because your faction's been eroded multiple times.
Yeah.
It's really stupid.
Yeah. Wargaming, I mean, I don't know. I guess I can't really talk about it because it's still super popular in a lot of places, and like a lot of game stores, their big events are all a war game. Star Wars, I think, is probably one of the biggest ones, honestly, besides Warhammer. And
Yeah, Warhammer still's got some big tournaments. Like, I mean, my small store is apparently the best location for like Warhammer events in like this side of Washington.
interesting.
And like, I'm pretty sure, funnily enough, the area, the really cool Warhammer store near you guys, is the other really good place for Warhammer events because the dude who runs my local store is friends with that guy.
Yeah.
Like I mentioned, oh yeah, I was up there. I looked at these really sick minis, and he named him immediately, and was like, yeah, I'm friends with him. He's sick. He's so good. But like, yeah, it's our store in our shitty little town is built to be like the gathering point for Warhammer. There are people who apparently come from like Idaho to play at this tiny store.
That's interesting.
Yeah. It's big. It's a fun like community thing. I love the tournaments. They're really fun. I don't play war games because I don't have the time for it.
Yeah.
Time, attention span, like there's a lot of other things. But the tournament is such a fun feeling because it's so sick. You get to meet a lot of cool people. It's such a fun just communal hangout. Like I completely get it.
Yeah, well, I mean, most things like this that are like a little bit more on the niche side are always carried heavily by their communities. It's always fascinating to me when I stumble into a new community because you never know a thing exists, or at least to a degree, until you stumble into their community.
Yeah.
Like, most people don't know that there's such an avid Phantom Dust community out there.
I'm not surprised. Like that is a game you can carry a little niche competitive scene.
Yeah, it's such a niche game, and almost no one has heard of it. But it's a game that is so near and dear to my heart. I'm just not the kind of person who could play the same game forever, or
Yeah,
even
same.
like even more than like a few months. Once I've done everything, like it's hard to play even more after that. But it's not that I don't like Phantom Dust. If anything, I probably have several hundred hours in it. But that's like, you know, I don't have such a need for it that I could play it for thousands and thousands of hours like some people can.
It's really fun, but like having engaged with it only in that level of the same way you would Smash Bros, where just like we're all fucking around in like a 4-person to 2-person game. Like it's just we have games where you try to do your best and try to sweat, and then other games where you're like, I have a joke deck, let's see what I can do. It's got those levels to it where you can engage with it on multiple things. And I like and I follow niche competitive game stuff because I always love that form of competition. I love finding the competition in shit that doesn't need it.
Yeah, yeah.
Shouts out to Kung Fu Panda Showdown of Legendary Legends, which is a game that you cannot buy anymore, but has carried a niche community of this very shitty Smash clone.
Super fun.
So shitty of a Smash clone that like there are multiple characters that are completely broken. In that way of if they touch you once you die. Baby Poe is a nightmare to deal with in that game because he kills you once and then there's a glitch where you infinitely jump up into the top stage where no one can get you and you stall for 3 minutes and then you win.
Humans are so weird. The fact that someone loves doing that, you know, they're like, I'm gonna get ahead and then I'm gonna not play the game. Is just...
I got that game once, and I wouldn't be surprised if this was a reason a lot of people got into it, because the game was free years ago. I think it was like 2018 or something, 2017, 2018, around there. It was free on PlayStation Plus, like one of those like monthly games. For some reason, they gave that one.
Right.
And my friend and I at the time, like we played a lot of fighting games, but like we were big into Smash, and so we were like, what is this really shitty Smash clone? We should play it. So we played a fucking like load of it. And then that's where I found out that Mr. Ping, Poe's dad, is completely broken because he has a down air that hits everything. It's just usable in every situation, infinitely spammable. And then that was the game of like, oh, so it's just this? Because all these characters are broken because there's very basic things you need to do in a platform fighter to make sure things don't go that bad, and then they did none of it because it was clear the game was made in like less than a year. And then by other like Smash Bro type players, like those really competitive heads, they found the game and were like, let's just fuck around, let's make this like a big thing.
That really reminds me of the anime Shangri-La Frontier, because the protagonist is like a shit game, a trash game hunter. And so there's all these games that he plays that are just super buggy, but they have these really niche communities around them because everyone is just trying to meta bugginess, and it's really funny.
It's super fun. Like, actually, funnily enough, I wouldn't be surprised if this was based on this. Because Evo or one of those like similar big fighting game tournaments would do that. There was a little event that they would do every year alongside where they would have a mystery game, and it was some weird fighting game like no one has heard of. Mm-hmm. You don't get any context for like what system it's on, whatever, and they'd have like a special mini tournament for people where you just show up and you're handed a game, and you're like, all right, I guess I need to figure out what the fuck this is.
That sounds fun, though.
That's hype. That's the kind of shit I would do all the time. I like fighting games as a viewer more than anything. Like, I love it. That is the type I would actively engage in on a tournament setting.
But, all right. Let's talk about Anima Beyond Fantasy. It's no mystery that it's a game that we both really enjoy, and it's a game that almost no one knows about except for like a few people who are super excited that anyone else is even talking about it. And I've been playing tabletop games for a while. We spent literally the last handful of years just trying new games, playing new games. And we've played some of the most popular games on the market. We still haven't played Call of Cthulhu, but that's on the list. It'll come in the near future-ish.
Yeah.
But when I say the best TTRPG, I'm not talking about for everyone. I'm talking about Anima Beyond Fantasy does something that I feel like not enough TTRPGs do. And if it was just done a little better, and if more people knew about it, I honestly think Anima Beyond Fantasy could have been like a huge deal. Now, Alex, as someone who's enjoyed a lot of Anima and who enjoys the game thoroughly, why do you think I would specifically call it potentially one of the best TTRPGs out there?
I think more than likely it's Anima Beyond Fantasy is a game that's a really good blend between like roleplay and mechanics, where it really incentivizes a lot of the things that we espouse on this stream, where we talk about having this openness for people to make something of your own, but it's also very set forward and like, here's the rules to do anything you can think of. It has the rules for it. You don't have to make it up. Alongside, like, I know the one thing that got super into about it was the lore. Like, its setting is just genuinely really sick, because it went all hard into, we're going to make our fantasy world that's kind of unlike a lot of other fantasy. I have yet to find a lot of worlds, like, outside of maybe Final Fantasy, the only maybe similar thing, where they're just, let's make something that's fully our own. No elves, no dwarves, no Tolkien fantasy, just its own thing. Probably another hefty amount of reasons, but I think it's the best blend of all the things we talk about tabletop being in this one very flawed but very fun package.
You touched on it, and you kind of named some of the core points I'm going to make, but you also are just like, it does a lot of things, and that's true.
It does a lot of things.
So when I consider like a really good TTRPG, what I'm looking for is interesting mechanics. I'm looking for a world or a setting or something that makes me interested. I want to be curious about a game. And as well, it's about creating like novel and unique types of experiences, you know, because TTRPGs are all on the head and they're mostly imaginary. When people talk about their favorite D&D games and everything like that, they always talk about these crazy things or this homebrew that their GM did. And like I feel like homebrew is just necessary to make the best tabletop experiences, just because there's no game that's going to provide everything for you. But games that can provide enough fertile ground, I think, can be really good. But there's a lot of games that kind of just expect you to do all the work.
Yeah, like I'll say too, there's like levels of it. D&D is the best contender for it because it really has that energy of come check out this game. You can play in a fantasy world. You can be anything you want. And then you look into it and you're like, well, I can do these things. Like, I can't really do anything I want for how open it is. And then right now, we at least have Pathfinder 2e as another contender of genuinely, there's a lot. If you can come up with a character concept, more times than not, you can do it in Pathfinder. And it's sharing that same vibe of very open, play what you want game. And then there's Anima.
Yeah. And what I believe Anima does really, really well is it's just packed, filled with anything you could think of, or it's packed with so much intriguing, interesting elements that, mechanically speaking, I don't think Anima Beyond Fantasy runs the best. I feel like in groups that are not completely aligned with their general style, it's not going to do well. And if you have power gamers in your group, they're going to ruin your Anima game because they're going to make living gods, and it's all in the rules, you know, and the GM has to kind of sit there and either allow it or heavily go in and edit everything to make it work.
Yeah, but I was fully walked through how at level 1 in character creation you can make a wizard mage character completely break the system over their knee, and then I took part in showing how the key system can break the system over its knee. Live play, it's on the channel. There's a playlist for it. There are some abilities in this game that just kind of push things a little too far.
Yeah, and people who have very poor self-control are is going to run into problems. But here's the thing. Here's the magic about this whole situation, just this one element. D&D is not really any different.
No.
Maybe not as early in the game, but at some point there's a lot of D&D characters who are just broken and mess everything up. So, if the most popular TTRPG in the world does it, then I guess I can't really be mad that Anima has the same problem. And I play Pathfinder 2e, and what I like about Pathfinder 2e is that it's a very solid experience. It's a game that feels incredibly difficult to cheese and to be unfun, even when you have players who have poor self-control. And that's good, but the problem that you run into with that is you get a lot of things that either don't feel right, or a lot of things that start feeling very samey when it comes to how the rules work. There's a lot of classes in Pathfinder 2e that do just feel very, very similar to play. And as someone who's currently playing a full caster for the first time in that game, I hate full casters in Anima or in Pathfinder 2e. I
Damn.
I feel like early game they're just not fun because the thing you're supposed to be doing, which is like using spells, is so incredibly limited that through an adventuring day you're gonna run out of your spells in the first couple of encounters, and it's real rough, and there's just not enough spell slots to really get to do all of the things you really want to do.
Yeah, like once you get past maybe level 5,
Yeah.
I adore playing a full caster. It's one of the few games where I have enjoyed playing a full caster because like I love playing wizard in Pathfinder. But yeah, you need to have things open. Like that's why getting wands and staves like those like wands of blasting or whatever is so useful in
Yeah.
Pathfinder. 'Cause that's what I did as a sorcerer. Like early on, I was like, I should just have like a bandolier of wands that just do different spells, so that way I have my spell slots still.
Yeah. And you know, you're right. After about 5th level, it gets a lot easier because then you have your 3rd level spells, and those are really good, and you have enough spells overall where it feels like you can get through an entire day and have a lot. And the stabs really help, and the wands really help. But like early game, we're level 3, almost 4 currently. It's not fun. It's really
Yeah,
not fun.
it's rough early on, and like, because I think the hardest one is if you're divine caster. Divine caster early, divine caster sucks so bad. But once you get higher up, it's pretty good. You get some fun stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, like wizard has the best of it because wizard gets the most spell slots, the most spell options, uh, and the fun tools to where I, as an evocation mage, magic, like damn it, magic damage is nerfed. Cantrips suck now. I was pumping out the most damage in a lot of our combat encounters.
Yeah, I mean, casters are not the highest single target DPS, but when it comes to multi-target, they're unmatched. Which
Yeah,
again, it's so weird that so many people just, I don't know. Anyway, we're not here to talk
I
about the
know.
weird people on the internet. We're here to talk about Anima Beyond Fantasy. Uh, but the thing that I've been finding, especially after returning to Anima Beyond Fantasy after being on a hiatus from it for a while, because to be honest, I was getting really tired. One, of playing the same game, which I'd played Anima for years and years and years. But two, of just needing to throttle the game, needing to bend it into submission to make it work. Because it's not fun when you're trying to watch every player's character to make sure they don't make some choices that are going to make the game unfun to play for everyone else. So, what I'm finding is the case is Anima Beyond Fantasy does a few things better than any other TTRPG, and it's not even close. First and foremost is the lore. The accessibility of the lore is like unmatched. There's the core book has some lore, but they have like a really good world book that not only is it interesting to read, which is a huge element that most games don't have, but it's so diverse and there's so many different elements where there's like deep lore. There's the lore before whatever setting the game is intended to be played in. There's a lot of that. There's a lot of lore before the like intended era of the game, and a lot of it isn't even super relevant to the actual world at the time that the players are supposed to be playing. And the characters in the world, like the notable characters, are surprisingly well fleshed out and intriguing. Again, I I'm well aware of the deep amount of lore in Pathfinder, Galarian's lore. But what it doesn't have, one, is interesting lore for like almost every region. Like there is, you could say, interesting lore for every region, but a lot of it is just kind of like broad and wide sweeping, where like an individual region in Anima has so many unique looking points of interest that you would want to go check it out. And I can't even really tell you more than a few notable characters in the Pathfinder universe, even though they released like a whole book that talked about all these notable characters or whatever. But they're just like, here are some fantasy characters you can know about, rather than characters that feel like they're very impactful to the world lore and everything like that. Because the thing with Golarion and most TTRPGs, the world lore is so spaced out, and there's so many characters that just don't interact or wouldn't interact with each other. And Anima's got this really cool thing of there's a worldwide empire. There's an empire that controls or controlled everything. So every character is interconnected in the lore. And so when you go and you meet a notable character, they're doing something to the story at that time, and it always feels interesting. But if I was to meet a notable character in Pathfinder, which I have had happen a few times, it's like, that was cool, and that was it. That's all the lore feels like. And a lot of TTRPGs are like this. I mean, Wizards of the Coasts with Faerun have done so little to introduce interesting things like that, that it's not even worth talking about. The most interesting thing is it running into Red Wizards of Thay, or maybe like Harper's or something.
I'll give a shout out to Elminster, because Elminster's cool.
Elminster, yeah, he's one of those kind of characters, but like the only one.
Yeah, I can't think of anyone else, but like, he's sick. And I also like when he appears in Baldur's Gate 3.
So Anima's world feels genuinely interesting. There's no other TTRPG that I cared to learn about the lore as much as Anima's. And it's not because it's like a particular theme or anything like that. The games just don't have it, or they don't have a world that feels cohesive enough for me to want to learn the whole story. Because me learning about every region in Golarion they're just individual aspects of the same setting. But in Anima, it feels like every character you learn about and you read about create an interesting piece to a larger puzzle that just feels good to play. So it's like the only game I've found that has lore so interesting that I've read the world book back and forth. Like the Cosmere's Stormlight Archives has a world book that is really interesting, but that's because I'm someone who read the books, and so like it's like, oh yeah, let's see some of this fleshed out. And even then, it's not that good. It's not anywhere as good as the Anima's lore book, just because it gives broad sweeping information about individual regions, but there's not like the story hooks. There's not a lot of super notable characters, honestly. And the notable characters in Anima are like insane. Gotta say, Hellion Soulbringer, even though he's not a very interesting character overall, never forget his name just because it's Hellion Soulbringer.
Yeah, it's like a name that demands attention. And like, I obviously, I'm a big Cosmere head. I love it. And like but the world books for the Cosmere intrigue me as someone who wants more information from the novels in the series, not as a world book.
Yeah.
Because that's the thing I'll shout out, and I fully stand by, is the Anima books, especially with how small the team is, and like the big flaws in the game. Whoever did like the layout of all of their books, on it, I have yet to see a book that is as good, like in pure layout and what it's trying to do, because it's doing a right thing when you're making a world guide, where what you really want to do is give as many tools as possible to your players. The only other people that do that aspect of it I've seen well is the World of Darkness crew. Like the old, like even up to now, they're really good at giving you a lot of options. That everything in your setting is a tool to be pulled from for your people playing your game. Will most of them ignore your setting? Probably. But on the other hand, if you want to get around that, just make tools. You have all these characters that someone can pull from. They can be like, look at this anime fellow with a big scythe. Yeah, I want to include him. Look at him. Look at the way he's dressed. Look at his scythe. Look at his name. Like, obviously, we got to have him. And then the world guide offering in plot hooks and such. Like, I think if you're out there trying to make a tabletop game, you need to take some inspiration from how Anima lays it out, because it is really good at efficiently giving you a giant dump of information and then stepping back and being like, and here's all the cool shit you can do with that.
Yeah.
Instead of just text, and it's like so boring. I can't imagine how they afforded to do all this. It's insane.
For real, actually. It's actually a mystery. And that's also a thing as well. Anima has such gripping like art and such a good art direction for a lot of its things that you get a very strong sense of Anima's style, which is so unique compared to a lot of other TTRPGs as well. Because, I mean, let's be honest, a lot of TTRPGs are just ripping the fantasy vibe. And so a lot of games you look at have very similar types of art. And while there are some pretty hype pieces of art in both like Pathfinder and D&D, Anima just does it better, which is insane for such a small, lesser known type game. And
yeah, it makes it so like I'm pulled into art that looks different. I know the one I keep seeing at a Barnes and Noble is Blackbirds. That's one I keep seeing at like whenever I go to a bigger tabletop gaming section, and Blackbird, because it's that very gritty dark fantasy aesthetic, the stuff you would get on the like the Conan the Barbarian art style, basically.
Yeah.
You'd see on the front. And like it looks really sick. And from what I understand, the game itself is basically just an offshoot of Zweihander. So if you like Zweihander, you might like Blackbirds. But when I see a thing that has a visually different art style, that intrigues me. And I don't know, this might be the hot take, but I've been thinking about it since we're mentioning, like, if this game was just designed a bit better and pulled things itself together a little more, it might have been significantly more popular. I think if Anima Beyond Fantasy came out, like, in this decade, I think it might have actually done phenomenally better than if it was early 2000s.
Yeah.
Because this is just on my own upbringing of this. I did not grow up in the era where just being a nerd was something that get you bullied. What I did grow up with was the end of being a public fan of anime got you bullied. I remember the point in my like schooling and in my culture where if you were the person with a Naruto backpack, absolute loser. No one liked you. Until it was like middle of high school where that started falling off like a lot more in my day-to-day life.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're totally right. If Anima came out today, a lot of people would be super hyped for it and fanboying over it and whatever, because its presentation style, everything it gives up. Like, we've played a lot of TTRPGs. There is a handful of years where I was like, I just don't want to play Anima anymore, and I tried my best to like any other TTRPG more, and I was unable to do so.
It is hard because like I think it does a lot of things very right.
Yeah.
Because I'm also back and forth on the general style overall of it. Like, because I love the style. I like that it has its own style. I am less into the anime general aesthetic, as in like when you just think of the word anime, you're just like, ah, yes, this art style. Anima has its moments where it's really in that field, and then other moments where you're like, oh, this is like a really sick piece because like everything is so detailed. Um, I think it if Anima maybe had a less interesting art style, it might have been a little more popular, but also we'd lose a lot of what made Anima because it's such a it is genuinely a love letter to anime as a concept.
Yeah, I
Because
agree.
of how much inspiration it is, and by inspiration I mean whole scale ripping powers from anime the guy liked. I've yet to see another tabletop game where I can just straight up have hockey. Like
Yeah.
that's I haven't seen that before. Uh, like if it was dropped now, I think it would do a lot better because it's just it's more cool and more people are willing to be like, oh, this is like anime. I can still look at it though. Like I'm not an immediate loser, uh, or like I can't be seen with this. But then on that side, because it's just so willing to do weird things, and it found like good ways of doing it. Anima as a game is the most satisfying tabletop gameplay I've experienced. I like the fact that everything is so different that you can have a play style in a tabletop game, which for a lot of other tabletop games out there feels weird to say. Like, oh man, what's my favorite play style in D&D? Do I stand in front and plant my feet and attack and roll dice? Do I stand far away and roll dice? Instead of like, ah, let me balance like these powers and these really interesting mechanics all about around each other. Like it is I fully posit it is the most mechanically satisfying system I've engaged with.
I don't know if I give it that. I think it's the most fun mechanic systems to explore of any other TTRPG, I think is a better way of putting it.
I've yet to find a system that scratches the itch in any way I find interesting of like Anima's psychic system and summoning system. Like the actual way in gameplay you handle summoning, binding, controlling a creature, and then the actual systems for just psionics in general in Anima, I think are just phenomenally interesting to play. Like I had so much fun playing a big brain psychokinetic, actively paging through my shit, trying to figure out what is the optimal way I can cast like everything I want to do in one turn. I've yet to have that same experience in another game.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, it's fun to explore. I think if you, because in the grand scheme of things, you haven't actually played Anima that much. You've played a few characters at this point in time. I think if you played a lot more, it would be less that, but it's a fun game to explore because you kind of just do develop your own tech when you play this game, just because there's so much. Anima Beyond Fantasy is a point buy system, and you get a lot of points, and everything is multiplicative, and you use a lot of division, and it's like your archetype. When you want to put 1 point in a skill, you got to put 2 development points. Except for skills you're bad at, then it's 3. Though you can get advantages that make it where it's 1 for 1, and those are really good. And that sounds like a lot of work just to make a character. But what I feel like Anima does really well is it gives you so many interesting and defining tools that you can interact with, that you just can't help but make interesting characters every time you play the game. Granted, it's a game you can also just make bad characters in. You
You can just fuck up.
You can make just stinkers. And there's a level of proficiency required to make characters in Anima. But Anima has so many interesting player options and choices that you can make genuinely unique characters. Other TTRPGs say you can every character is different, every character is unique in their own way. And the uniqueness in, say, like Pathfinder 2e, for instance, is what stat bumps have I put my boosts into? Am I more of a melee thaumaturge, or maybe I'm a thinky thaumaturge who is more focused on social situations? It's something where if multiple people are playing the same class, functionally they're going to work very much the same with very few differences. Anima doesn't have that. Two people playing the same class can still be so crazy different. It's insane how just many options, because classes in Anima aren't classes in a traditional sense. They're more like frameworks. What's your character good at? What's your character bad at? But everything else. And here's like the core reason why I think Anima's probably one of the best TTRPGs out there. The game has so many interesting avenues of power and play that just exploring the different powers and how they work is fun. And the game doesn't have super painfully obvious anyway metas like some other games do. D&D, cough cough. Because why does everyone like playing paladins in D&D?
All the D8s.
Exactly. Well, it's mostly you get to play a badass warrior-esque character. You get to be a fighter essentially who has a magic sword that blows people up. It's just fun, mechanically speaking, to play. Like, you get to do the things you like to do, and you just are very effective at it. And you don't even need much else, but everything else is just gravy. Paladins, many interesting spells that they can throw onto their kit to make things interesting. The different types of smites can be very handy in some situations. You just get to play a magic fighter in a really fun, fascinating way. Ironically, more fun and interesting than the actual magic fighter subclass.
Yeah. Like, fighter is a class that's very mechanically boring. Like, genuinely so fucking boring. But then paladin is just, hey, like, do you like the concept of fighter? Here's good options for it. And then it is a game that doesn't have a subclass feature, but it does have, I think, if you look on that broad scale of it, the way I categorize a lot of stuff in Anima is there's no classes, but there's general powers that you get. It's the way I did in my video of, like, you have weapon, artifact type, you're just a martial or range, granted. You're using weapons, armor of the standard. You're not really utilizing magic. And then you have impossible weaponry. You have bloodlines you can play with. You have martial arts you can go into. Key, which has its many different paths you can go down in Key because it can practically do anything. All the different magic trees. Psychics, which have all of their own individual trees you can play with. Summoning, which I think is some of the coolest concepts for summoning of, I'm going to play Pokemon at you. I'm going to become another guy. I'm going to essentially become a warlock. I want as many patrons as humanly possible, either big scary monsters or the Arcana, which, funnily enough, that's next Anima character I want to play an Incarnation. Like, I want to have someone who goes really hard into packs and, like, going through all of those features you can get instead of a person who just embodies another guy.
Yeah, we haven't
it's
really
so
had
fun.
Anyone who really has done incarnations either is like their main mechanic, which is fascinating.
Oh yeah, I'm going all in on that, like, for the next character, because it's the next.
I'm well, like, you're talking about invocations.
Invocations, sorry.
Yeah.
I want to go super hard in invocations because they seem really sick. And
yeah, they are.
I want to come up with a character who would have a reason to try to do a lot of that.
And it's so hard for me to, like, put into words just how much more interesting it is to make him play characters in Anima Beyond Fantasy. It's like, I loved Pathfinder 2e. My channel was essentially a Pathfinder 2e channel up until recently, last year. And that was because I really liked the game. I spent a lot of time looking into rules, looking into different classes and everything like that. I spent a good 4 years really just delving hard into Pathfinder. And while I did play Anima for much longer than that, I mastered Anima's system much quicker than I mastered Pathfinder 2e, and that's just because it's just more interesting. And Alex is exactly right. The thing in Anima is like, when you are playing a fighter, it's not just what are my feats, you know, how like in Pathfinder, when you play a fighter, it's like, what kind of fighter am I? Am I a recall knowledge fighter? Am I a trip fighter? Am I a dual weapon DPS machine fighter? You know, all this kind of stuff. In Anima, it's, am I a fighter who uses impossible weapons? So do I use a mace cannon? Do I use a giant boomerang axe? Do I use wire weapons? Do I use a mechanical puppet to play? This is all just impossible weapons. Or do I use the other Ars Magus, where I can do things like rip a hole in reality and attack people from a different dimensional space? Or do I do the whole Naruto, like, opening the gates thing, where I just can open these seals, it's called Seals of the Dragon, and just get bigger and bigger power buffs? Do I swell up in size and become a living giant, you know, in the flesh? Do I make my own custom techniques? Because Anima does martials the best, because they just give you a system. They're like, all right, make your own techniques, develop your own magic. Like, magic has their list of spells, psychic has their list of abilities, martial characters, make your own techniques, make your own magic for your way of playing the game. And that's fun in and of itself. It's very interesting to do. And it's so thematic, especially because you can also, it's cheaper to make your techniques actually thematic by following certain elemental trends. And by elemental trends, I mean, like, the common, you have fire, water, air, fire, or earth. I forget which one I missed. Or lights, or dark, because apparently those are elements. It's in, like, spellcasters, every school of magic, every sub-school of magic are just filled with so many interesting things you can do, interesting mechanics. They have certain trends. Light is so interesting because it's both light, but also perception and, like, peace or good feelings. Like, there's a light spell that just makes you insanely good at perceiving things, making your search inhumanly good. Or there's one that can just banish any negative emotion that someone is having. Or you can just make a hologram and just kind of do illusions. And every, like, magic school is like that. Psychics are probably some of the most interesting because their powers are some of the most open-faced, just letting you do things. Lift an object, and here's a table based, you know, like, how good your potential gets you is the size of the object that you can lift. Or here's electric powers, or here's teleportation powers. And you can pick and choose your blend of certain things. You can hyper specialize. The psychics can also choose essentially like a mentality where, based on your characters, like, are you an extrovert? Are you an introvert? Are you a psychopath? Changes how your psychic plays a little bit. Like,
Yeah, like, you can really make it of a, how do you want your character's powers to really activate? I'm a huge fan. It's the element of anime style things and power systems I enjoy, where you can. I love me the level of JoJo, Jujutsu Kaisen, those levels of I have this power. It's very specific with how it works. It might have a really overpowered element to it, whatever, but like for example, I haven't seen Jujutsu Kaisen season 3 yet, but I know there's a character who's like I have super speed, but not really. Technically, I can squeeze 24 frames of an action into 1 second.
Yeah.
And like, oh shit, that's pretty sick. Okay. It's the element I like the Cosmere because I do love the check it out. I have a power that lets me fly. It's not actually flying. It's technically this, and it works like this. I'm a big fan of that, and like, I love that Anima is one of the first times in a game I feel like I can do that because I'm literally going to be doing that in our game. I have that concept of my character has my own kind of interpretation of how ki works of it's life energy, the energy you have inside, and it's that feeling of like I can really channel and have my own body do a lot of things, and then having it tied with a guy who's like I'm a scientist and I know a lot about the universe and the cosmos, and I can't like in my head figure out a way that I'd be able to, engulf my fist in fire or like flow like water. That doesn't make sense to me. But if I do the math on how exactly gravity works in like all these equations for it, I can actually have this key ability that lets me do insane knockback. Because you see, I did the math on how I could impart my momentum onto you on accordance to rocket physics, theoretical in this world, but he wrote a big treatise on how you could do space travel and like get long distances faster. That I love. I love the idea of a character that's like, I don't have a great imagination, so I have to do math to do my key abilities. I think that's really fun. It's the only game I can do that.
Yeah. And like it's just there's just so many tools. So many tools in not so many books. Anima only has, I think, relatively speaking, 6 or 7 actual books that you can pull information from. Let's see here. Yeah, about 7 books you can pull information from if you're not counting the core exit, which actually there's one more book, but it's only in Spanish currently. Yeah, which is not on this list for me, but it's the Spanish only world book for the new continent, which you guys haven't really done a lot in, which is super sad because it's very interesting. But about 7 books, which is a lot for most TTRPGs, all things considered, but not a lot when you think about D&D or Pathfinder 2nd Edition, where they have a lot of books that you can pull from. And even some older games like Call of Cthulhu or Vampire, for instance, have a shit ton of books. So it's not a lot of books, but of all those games, I feel like Anima just provides more or less the most interesting and most varied amount of options to adjust how you make and play the game, make your character and play the game. And it's not even close. it's not even a competition. Like in Vampire, you get maybe some other aspects, you get some other power sets or other clans, but they're mostly just using the same pool of stuff. It's
largely giving you another tool to play a different type of vampire. And then on the other element, a lot of the times when they're adding new shit for you, it's like they're adding in new tools you can do to roleplay more. Because the one I can think of that's the most applicable is the paths of like that alter how your humanity works.
Yeah.
And that's a very optional and should stay optional mechanic because it's not great and was largely utilized in their old version of it to hey GM, the game actually says I'm allowed to murder hobo.
Yeah.
That's, not great, but if you hand it to a good role player, like if it was an R table, it'd be fine. in like a general rando table, I would not allow that shit to run. But like, yeah, it's adding in roleplay stuff rather than, hey, here's an increased mechanical thing. Hey, you guys remember summoning? Remember how we had the whole Arcana thing in the core book? Well, here's 2 more variants of that.
Yeah. Well, and summoning even, like, had 2 variants when it first came up. There's the whole binding and summoning creatures, and then there's evoking the Arcana, and then it even mentions the great beasts to lead to further invocations. And then the Supernatural book expanded on invocations, added incarnations, added new types of specific familiar some creatures that you could bind to yourself, which were really good, you know. And it's like in our game that we're currently playing, which by the way, we're like 3-4 sessions in now, 4 sessions, and there's been no combat, and it's been mostly just like chilling in a city kind of setting, and we've been having a ton of fun. But in our game alone, we have Dr. Hawthorne, who's just a space-themed, like, technician anime style character. Is essentially just Goku, but space-themed a little bit. It's really reductive, but the simplest I could explain to someone in just so few words.
Picture Goku, but he needs to do the math on how to do a Kamehameha.
Yeah, and it's space themed.
Yeah, and it's like all purple and shit.
Like gravity and supernovae, maybe. I don't know.
I mean, he's literally the 2 powers, or he's getting himself a gravity buff, and then I'm gonna make a hey, so I'm doing like nuclear fusion on my arms to make it act like the ionization of a sun. Like, that's gonna be how he does fire damage.
Yeah. Then we have Elf Paladin, who has like a miniature goddess as a source of power, who's just like the embodiment of, he's a knight who's the embodiment of like fertility and natural like energy. Then we have what's the best way to state Suzanne's character? Ex-cultist, acrobatic, monofilament wire user, who also has magic but is cursed, so her magic works a bit differently, except when she uses sin magic specifically. Which, by the way, in Anima, you can alter how your magic works, where certain characters have to worry about different things. That's just something you can't do in any other TTRPG. Like, you play a magic caster in Pathfinder, they all work generally the same. You have spell slots, maybe you have focus spells. That's about it. Maybe you have some unique core mechanics that can kind of do things, but those are the biggest things you're gonna do. In Anima, you could just be a normal spellcaster, spend your mana, cast your spells, or you could be a incomplete spellcaster where you need to make a check before you use your spells, but that bonus usually goes in other places. For Suzanne's character, she can use monofilament wires, which are damn near impossible to see and can cut through armor like butter. And so it's like, hey, I'm a magic caster and I can do things like turn myself incredibly dark so I can be extra stealthy, or I can just bisect you with wire weapons. That's very interesting. We have a cyborg man who is augmented because he I don't even remember why Alicia's character did it in the first place.
Got their ass beat by someone clearly supernatural.
Oh right, yeah, they were protecting someone, got their ass beat, and they're like, I want to be better, and this guy's like, I can make you better, but we had a price, and they're like, I'll do it. So Cyborg Man, just super dense. We found out last session that they could just eat a grenade and take no damage.
Damage barrier is so beautiful.
It's so good. Which that same grenade, by the way, nearly killed 2 other players.
Yeah, I'm in a coma for 2 days.
Yeah. I did say we didn't do combat. We haven't done combat. This is more like an assassination attempt.
Yeah, I hope they try to do something more overt. I wanna beat their ass. Like, mainly because, man, I can't wait to show off just how cool of a kickboxer he is. And it's gonna be sick. I have it in the works. It's gonna be still a bit of a wait, but I will get a commission of Dr. Hawthorne. And I've reestablished a few things. One of which, because I was like figuring him out, he has Henry Cavill's build from Mission Impossible Fallout. Cause like that's the bit to remember with him too, is that he is buff, but also like I did roll a 10 on the appearance. Like that, so I have been promised that he will be a 10. So y'all gonna get a fucking Tumblr sexy man when I get my shit back.
I can't wait.
It's gonna be so fun.
Then we have a not paraplegic technically, but one of the characters is in a wheelchair most of the time, / has crutches. One of their legs is missing. But they're a summoner. But of course, not normal summoning. They do pact-based key summoning, where they need to make a bond with a creature, and then they can summon them Naruto style in the summoning jutsu. So there's that character. And by the way, they've summoned biblically accurate angel as their first summon. They'll get more as time goes on. And then we have smart nerdy kid who is slowly discovering a type of language that by its design can be used to power like supernatural computers based on the rhythm and method of speaking.
It's gonna be so sick when like we get to the point where we're fighting monsters outside the city, or like we're doing the big cool combat stuff and our characters are badasses. Because right now, yeah, they're just people. They're people who have like some extra shit going on, but they're still people.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, that's kind of the style of the campaign of it. Just, it's that thing where as time goes on, your ability to just be people will be slowly suppressed and pushed to the side as other things require you guys to be, you know, more than just people. But yeah, and that I double check my list real quick. That is the party so far, and that is just everything we've developed in the first handful of sessions. And it's been interesting. And in fact, Alex, I recommend going back to the episode you missed and at least listening to Devin's portion of it, because one, I'm super proud of the thing I made up in the spot of how the language in his, like how the language works and all that kind of stuff, because it's fascinating.
Oh shit, yeah, I got it then.
It was a very inspired moment by me, and a fun moment for Devin in general, because he and Cadmus, the NPC he was talking to, had some interesting moments. But I'm more interested in the special language I invented, essentially. But so here's the thing that like Anima does really well, and I think is what actually sets it apart. Anima provides enough for you to grab pieces and start putting them together to make your characters, but it is open enough where you can make things up or you can skin things in ways that are not just skinning things. It's not like in Pathfinder where you're like, I'm using fireball, but my fireball is a dragon, you know. And in Anima, it would be like, I've made my fireball into a dragon. Here's its dragon-like abilities and aspects. Because that's just what you can do in the game, you know.
Yeah.
It's something where skinning is not even necessarily just a superficial like appearance of a thing. It can literally change how some abilities work and function. And like, I'm aware that there are games like the Genesis system and Fate Core and all that kind of stuff that are a lot open faced and you can kind of do whatever, but that's because you say it does. Things work with like these tables and everything mostly because you say it does, you know. There's not things that you're taking and utilizing. Like, you can make almost any anime character in Anima Beyond Fantasy, not because you can skin anything to look like any anime character, but because you can almost recreate their abilities one for one. It's actually alarming how accurate and how you can do it in the system. I was able to recreate a character from a book series I've read recently who had a very pretty unique power that I didn't even think existed in Anima until I started reading a little bit more. I'm like, wait a second, that's the same power. How is that here? I don't want to spoil it because it might be relevant in the campaign, but it's insane how close it got. Like, I'm going to open up right now the Dominus book, which I do think is probably like the best book.
It is my favorite. It's the one I give people when I'm like, hey, do you want to know what Anima is? Here you go.
Like, okay, here's a great one. One of the Legacies of Blood, which is just like a thing you can get at the beginning of the game that allows you to be supernatural in some way. Legacy of the Moon, Tsukuyomi. In antiquity, 12 high priestesses of the Varja signed a pact of the Tsukuyomi, goddess of the Black Moon, so that their descendants would gain some tenebrous power. Although this pact cost them their souls and eternally bound them to the essence of their children to the darkness, the Lady of Naraku fulfilled her word in part, binding the spiritual energies of their firstborn to the moon. Even today, the heirs of this dark priestess possess this legacy, just as strong as it was 1,000 years ago. So this bloodline specifically gives you abilities based on the phase of the moon. So I'm not going to bore you with all the statistics because most of this is just like number based. But like during a full moon, your character is just better at like everything. But as the moon fades, you just get better at everything more and more until you hit the new moon, in which you are the best at everything, getting a pretty massive bonus, all things considered. And you have enhanced regeneration. And if there is a eclipse, during that eclipse, your character becomes even stronger, can perform god level difficulty skill checks, and their regeneration jumps an insane amount.
Goofy.
This is just one, and they're all not even close to the same.
Oh yeah, like the bloodline stuff, like it all goes from pretty standard, like, yeah, you have like a berserker bloodline, you have like this little thing, you have this little thing, to absolutely ludicrous.
Like eternal blood. Your character no longer considers their head or heart critical locations.
Love that.
As long as you can reattach your head after it's severed, you will live.
Yeah, it's crazy because like, you want to do key, sure. You want to do anti-key, all right, here you go. Because that's another route to get that same power. I love Nemesis. Nemesis is such a fun concept.
And then there's like the Ars Magus, which are just like techniques that your character can learn. And there's like ethereal, infinite attacks. Now this requires you to have an attack ability of 200 plus, which is very high, something a character normally would not be able to get to until they were about level 10, which level 10 is essentially endgame in Anima, all things considered.
Yeah, that's a far away power you can get.
But how this ability works. When they use this ability, the character selects a target and enters a special combat mode with a duration of 5 turns. During these turns, all the attacks he makes against the target do not cause him to lose hit points, although the theoretical damage for each attack must be recorded. At the end of the 5th turn, the character totals all the points of the damage he would have done to the enemy and chooses an effect. You can do Sure Critical, which all the damage produced goes towards an automatic critical, which in Anima, there's like a hit location thing. So essentially, Sure Critical allows you to do things like obliterate someone's head or heart or whatever. This is Fist of the North Star. You hit a guy like, and then his heart explodes. You know, that's exactly what that does. There's Absolute Attack, where you just deal one super massive attack that is so impossible to block and bypasses things like damage resistance and all this kind of stuff.
I'm pretty sure Ars Magus has a Super Saiyan transformation.
It does. That would be one of the transformation ones. The Awakening, where you just power up to another mode, and it just gives you a bonus to all your actions, and all your key accumulations go faster.
Maybe I should do that. Maybe I make Dr. Hawthorne go Super Saiyan.
Yeah.
I'll find an explanation for it, but it'd be kind of sick, if anything, that he has a transformation that is essentially opening himself further to like that link he feels with him in the cosmos.
Then there's something. There's another technique like Haima, which is Shadow of Blood, which essentially your character reduces all damage they take in half. Granted, that damage becomes sacrifice life rather than full life, but you can reduce all of the damage you take in half, which is insanely strong in a game like this.
It's a big risk and reward.
And one of the things I find very interesting in Anima as well is the combat is legitimately like pretty high stakes, all things considered. And not high stakes in the sense that like your character gets hit once and they're like dead, or it takes very little damage to kill a character. It's more of Anima has in its system this kind of cascading failure when you start like taking good amounts of damage. Because when you get damaged enough, you can get critical, which means rolling against a critical damage and with your physical resistance. So a character who gets very damaged might have like a penalty, which makes it easier for them to be damaged, which makes it more likely for them to be critical or even to get downed at that point. And it's something where like Anima combat can feel very almost real. I remember during the one shot that we did before this campaign started, where the characters like tussled with this guy with a gun, and it went exactly the way you thought it would, even though the characters like got one up on some of the thugs that they were going up against. Once someone was shot with a gun, it was pretty much over at that point for that character.
Yeah, I think it's the best way to put it. It's like, it's that level of cascading failure where you fuck up once, you get something bad that hits you, now you have to adjust to it, to where it makes it feel like Anima, you gotta get strong, you gotta approach everything kind of smart. I think the combat becomes a lot better once you don't do the normal initiative system.
Yeah.
I think the variant system is a lot better. But like it's a game that is both like let's play it tactically, but not so tactically that we need a battle map because
Yeah, it's
Anima
not
with battle
painful.
map is kind of dumb. Uh, like movement speed isn't something that's incredibly. You have it obviously. It's like usually base 7 is what you got for movement stat.
6 or
6. Okay.
well, it's based on your agility. So
Yeah, but like
most
and
players
on
have at least
average,
6.
on average, you got that, and like you can then be like, oh yeah, I have a little bit higher movement speed, so like maybe this and this. But it's not a game that does well when you go and decide to lay out everything on a battle map and go through all this because the scale will get pretty crazy later on. Like, you know, if I'm throwing enemies outside the battle map, what happens?
Yeah. Yeah, Anima's a game that gets too crazy too fast, where it's mostly you just gotta do theater of the mind, because like there's this abilities where you get the ability to knock someone back, and like at first it's pretty mild, 5-10 feet, maybe up to 30 feet, that's like Pathfinder levels, and then it goes like very quickly to like 1 to 3 miles. And it's like,
Yeah. It is
well,
it's a thing of Anima, if you're going to have any form of battle map or like that, it's good to do it only as here's like a loose interpretation of what's happening right now. Like so you are aware at a glance who is still in play because you have the trappings of theater of the mind where sometimes I'm guilty of this because I'm bad at it, keeping track of everything. And so
yeah.
if it's just a very loose like this doesn't mean you walk up 10 feet and punch the guy. It's just so you know that this person is in the scene, present, and is a threat. Is like the better way of going about it.
Yeah, like in Anima, the best way to do a battle map is just to have like the map just so everyone knows locality and everything like that, but not to like start measuring distance or anything like that. They'll be like, am I close enough to this guy? And Jim will be like, yes, but you'll have to use more than a quarter movement to get to him, so you'll take penalties if you do anything this round. It's like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
And that's about it, you know.
The other element I like, it's something that I always tried to do when I did battle maps. I think the strength of having a thing like that is showing, like, we're gonna make like this location. Maybe we're fighting on a city street. There's some parked cars. There's this and this. It's the thing that turns it into like, I am in a white void fighting, which sometimes theater of the mind can feel like, and turn into like, oh no, I'm on this location. Is there anything I can do with said location? And like that opens up, but it's like it's the level in between. This is essentially a Final Fantasy side by side battle thing where we're little sprites waiting to do our actions towards the enemies standing still. Towards Pathfinders, all right, I move 20 feet, I'm behind him, I get he's now off balance, I now get this thing. It's you got to find that happy medium of just like, hey, this is so you can visually just kind of see at a glance what's happening.
Yeah. So, it's what it really boils down to, this whole conversation, is Anima Beyond Fantasy gives you player options. It gives you a lot of interesting things that are not just like, here's spells of different types that like are balanced around doing so much damage or doing damage and a side effect and everything like that. It like different spells in Anima just do wildly different things, and the game isn't designed to be like balanced around the idea of like, well, balance in the first place. Weapons are one of its weakest elements. They're still real fun, but there's not a lot of balance to it. Some weapons are just objectively better than others.
Yeah, like there's a lot of weapons where I think Pathfinder is probably the game that does weapons the best.
I agree.
Because like I feel like there's a reason for me to pick a different type of halberd than the one that just has the biggest dice type.
Yeah. But what Anima does really well is it really doesn't matter what weapons you're using at the end of the day, because oftentimes they're paired along with like key techniques or abilities or anything like that. So a very low damage weapon that just makes your character have really high initiative could be really good, because if your initiative is so high, you can surprise an enemy in a round, and that gives them massive penalties to the point where it would do the same as a weapon that was bigger, just by grace of making the enemy so unable to defend against the weapon.
Yeah, that's like the one thing with Anima, is that like you're working around speed at times, because speed, when it comes up, I mean, in the normal initiative system is I think a lot more brutal, but then in our variant of the system, which I enjoy a lot more, it's a nice like surprise bonus, and it really does mean you gotta really play into how much do you want to deal with initiative, because you can play a character that will always go last, or you can play a character that will always go first. So like, which one do you want? And
or
then,
you could go somewhere in the middle and just
yeah,
be okay with not going first, but not so slow that you're almost always going to get critical. So,
and having played both ends of the spectrum, like playing a character that will always go first because I've bumped up my initiative so high, it kind of rules.
yeah.
And so does just being totally fine with, yeah, I'm gonna go last, fuck it. I'm the tank, that's fine. And then it's another element where I will stand by. Anima is, for me, the most mechanically satisfying game I've played. It Anima tanking is just so much more fun than any other form of tanking.
Yeah, I agree.
I enjoy it so much.
There probably are some games like Lancer probably has some really fun tank mechanics, all things considered, because Lancer has a lot of fun mechanics in general to mess around with.
Oh yeah.
But Anima, you can just your tanking can get ridiculous. So
Yeah, it rules to be the person that's like, because of the fact this system is so brutal once you start failing, to be like, hey guys, don't worry, I'll tank it for you. It feels good. It feels good to save your squishy friends, and it does feel good to hear a really big scary number and then your GM tells you the really goofily small number of damage you take.
yeah. And fun thing about that too, there's a Ars Maga specifically for tanking characters called Samael, the Final Retribution, and what it does is the amount of damage you take from a singular enemy is essentially stored, and then you can unleash it, and when you do, you add to your attack all the damage you took from an enemy over the course of the combat.
Maybe I don't play a summoner. That sounds really fun.
I made one of my Inquisitors, Patrick Finnegan, which I don't think you actually ever played it with him.
Nope, I have not seen him. I know of him though. I've heard that name a good few times.
Yeah, he's a well-known character. But that was one of the techniques that I gave to him mostly. It's not even like his main thing. Patrick Finnegan is just like a hunk of flesh is really all he is. Like he just takes hits, and he's so big and so bulky. Like I think his character, actually, do I have his character sheet? I might still have his character sheet.
Isn't this the character that you said was in part inspired by that one dude from
Alexander Anderson from
Hellsing?
Hellsing. Yeah, there we go. Yep, inspired by that exactly. And where is, I know I have it somewhere. I'm sure I do. Maybe I don't, which is super sad. But he had like 400 HP, which in Anima is insane. That's a lot of HP.
Is nuts.
And he just had a lot of the key abilities that made him pretty damage resistant. It was fun one time taking 200 damage and being like, that's not a critical.
Yeah, maybe I do that next. Maybe I play a character like that, the ultimate tank.
I'm trying to find some. Where is it? I know it's here. Oh, there it is. Yep. Samael, final retribution. And it's not just for attacks either. You could also apply that to like any check against the opponent. Like you could add to your dodge or block or whatever.
It's such a fun just concept of an ability, especially to have a character that might be more of a holy man of the I I only bring the what you have brought upon yourself.
Yeah, he is like the embodiment of the martyr. He represents your sins against God will come back to you. That's his style. He's very fire and brimstone style of preacher, which is fun.
Yeah.
But yeah. Oh my god! You know what? Now I'm mentioning Inquisitors. You know what another really really cool thing in this game is?
Oh yeah.
Magic items. My players aren't very familiar with this because I've been really bad about giving it to them in the past before. I'm changing that, but still.
I loved my my Inquisitor sword. They got some good ass weapons.
Yes. The magic items in Anima, one, they're not meant to be super accessible. They are all super rare, unique things and incredibly powerful, which I actually like. I kind of hate how common magic items are in a lot of games nowadays. Because I would prefer to find a magic item and have that be like game changing for me than to be like, here's my +1 sword. It's kind of sharp.
Like, oh, I have a magic web thing. You know, it's the thing of I both like it and don't, because on one hand I'm like, I want the fun magic items because a lot of times, you know, it's cool to have fun new toys you get.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I think that it kind of fucks with your world a little bit depending on how you want to run it. Because yeah, in Anima, a setting that's meant to be low magic, one where people largely don't believe magic is real. If there were just magic artifacts everywhere, that would make no sense. There's a justification I really love in the King Killer Chronicles. It's something I adore to add into your world that has magic, and it's like an objective thing for your world. Where in that book, young Kavoth, he's working in like the Artificer Forge to make money, and he designed some really sick things. They're like super high tech, advanced, clever. But the problem is, like, one person in that world might get use out of it. It's like so useful. It's also so expensive because of the materials and like labor required. To where the guy points out, yeah, sure, you made this thing. It's very cool. I'm not going to deny that you're skilled in this. But what do you legitimately think will help a person, and what do you think they would buy? Because for way less money and way less effort, you could make a box that has a refrigeration rune on it to keep your food fresh. And so in that world, making very mundane for our real modern day life, making those artifacts is significantly more useful. That's the thing that gets made. So there aren't really magic swords, magic weapons floating around in that world. Because why the fuck would you do that? I like that justification a lot. I like that idea of, I'm going to put it into a way that makes more money and makes more logistical sense.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, like, that's something that really makes sense. But like mechanically how a lot of games do it, it's just like, you kill a bandit. Oh, he had a +1 sword. Cool. That's, you know.
It also adds to the question, what the fuck is a +1 sword?
Right. In like, let me read to you all one of my favorite magic weapons from the Anima artifact book. The Dunkelschwert. The Dunkelschwert is a weapon of demonic origin, the sword of the late infernal Duke Balthazar, forged for him by his legions. Dunkelschwert is an artifact that is half weapon, half demon, made of wood and metal, with a blade as black as ebony. The weapon has the power to merge with its owner, melding in his arm and nesting like a parasite. The bearer of the Dinkleshort can then change his own forearm into a set of razor-like tentacles that respond to his will. Less than a century has passed since the death wake. What this sword does, it's a quality weapon, which is really big in Anima. Cuts good, all that kind of stuff. It's essentially the +1 of this world. But it's a weapon that fuses with your body. When it's inside you, no one can detect the weapon, and it can't be removed from you unless someone cuts off the limb it's nested in. It's an unholy weapon, so it does extra effects against essentially holy type characters. You can summon 4 tentacle blades, each requiring you to sacrifice 10 life points in order to do so. Allowing you to attack with multiple weapons at once, which is also really powerful in Anima. And then Symbiosis. The blade moves according to the desires and thoughts of its master. So using them depends on the character's fighting ability. Contrary to the general rule, the maximum number of attacks per combat turn is not dependent on the character's attack ability, but how many blades he's extruded. Each allows a separate attack with only a -10 penalty for each additional attack, which is, again, really huge. And then Thief of Happiness is its final ability. It is exceptionally selfish and does not allow its bearer to feel affection or respect for others. Therefore, the weapon makes an effort to assassinate people close to its owner. If a character being Dinkleshort misses an attack while close to someone he cares about, the attack gets directed onto the individual.
Damn.
Like, one, sick. Tentacle arm sword made from a demon. But also, just lore-wise, this weapon will try to kill your friends, which is really fun, really interesting. And, like, that's the thing. That's what I like about magic weapons in general. And it's something that has been kind of lost in kind of the gamification of fantasy over the years. Because, yeah, you're right. People do just like getting new toys. They like getting new things. Even if it's something just so minor as, like, my sword does fire damage. My sword does ice damage. You know, they just want something that feels powerful and magical and stuff like that. But like, I would almost prefer, if I found a magic weapon, for that to be almost life-changing for my character, because it's just like, what thing do I find and how does that affect how I'm going to play the game moving forward, you know? Or
because like you have something incredibly powerful, and also if you're gonna have something, a cool item like that, there's the gamification that you can add of it that is risk and reward. Like, yeah, sure, man, you have this very powerful sword. It has this really strong effect of adding in an easy to get multi-attack, which is super strong, but it's gonna try to kill your friends.
Yeah, and it costs sacrifice life points to like even use the blades in the first place,
which is rough. As someone who's getting a lot of sacrificed health loss in this game, it's rough.
You know, and I think the final point I want to make in this whole conversation as well is because Anima's a D100 system, it's a 100 plus system, so you roll a D100 and add to it. The game is so much easier for me as a GM to augment, change the abilities or actions of characters, or to give players bonuses. Like recently, and in this campaign specifically, I've been giving players extra skill points, essentially, for some of their stuff. Like 5 points here, 10 points here, all that kind of stuff. In Anima, grand scale, that's not a lot, you know. But it's something that you can't do in other games, because in D&D, a +1 means a lot. And in Pathfinder, even more so, really.
Yeah. But like a +5 and like a +10 or whatever in Anima, up to a limit, because I know you're giving us up to 80 is what you're doing. It makes it, you know, now I don't have a penalty for it, because it's also just on the outside of that, another really fun blend of roleplay and mechanic, because I'm playing a character that is a scientist, and funnily enough, I have a 3 cost to actually learn occultism. So it's harder for me to level up the occultism skill. But I'm telling the story of a scientist learning about occultism. So when I'm getting these little upgrades, it's a method for my character to really easily show that knowledge. A way that frees me up to do other fun things. But like now I'm just, it's statistically I'm not garbage at it. I at least know roughly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and to be
Just
fair,
not as
I'm
much
not
as a
giving you
wizard.
guys up to 80. You get points based on what your character already knows and what you don't. So,
Oh, okay.
for
I thought it was a cap
instance,
of 80.
like you got your plus 10 from like your conversation plus the book that you received. But Suzanne's character probably would not get any bonus from any of that because her character already generally knows about magic.
Yeah.
There was a thing before where it's just like if your character had a score of 80, they would gain, or they wouldn't gain anything because they effectively knew what was being said. And there'll be things later that scale where it's like you'll get to a point where most general knowledge on a thing won't give you anything, but maybe you discover like a secret of the world, some very difficult to ascertain or witness kind of thing, and they will give you points even at that point, but it scales. But yeah, and also I can give more situational bonuses. Me giving my players plus 10 for doing something really cool in roleplay is rewarding but not game breaking, where in like D&D, advantage is probably the worst mechanic that everyone loves, because statistically speaking, it's a massive bonus. And D&D gives it away like candy. And the point is, they're like, if you're giving away advantage, you want the thing to succeed, which I kind of agree with. But because one, advantage doesn't guarantee success, it's not a flat bonus or anything like that. And two, there's just so many game mechanic things that can give you advantage. It just, like, if a player doesn't have advantage on a thing, then they're playing the game wrong, effectively, at this point. In Pathfinder, giving bonuses is damn near impossible. Not impossible, but like you can only have one bonus of a certain type, and if you get a bigger bonus of the same type, like circumstance bonus would be the one that you would give as a GM for the situation. The player might already just have a circumstance bonus that is kind of just not being utilized at that point.
Yeah, it's like there's a lot of times in Pathfinder where a bonus is just kind of eaten.
And so, because Anima's working with such big numbers, and like the levels of success are kind of random. They're not random, but they're kind of random. Like moderate success, the standard success, at least for earlier game or sessions, is 80. The next one up is 120, 40-point difference. But then the next one after that is 140. So 20 points after that. But then it jumps to 180, 40 points after that. And then 240, which is 60 points up from that. So like giving a plus 10 bonus, it actually means different things based on the skill level of the character. Like a plus 10 is really good if you're trying to boost a 120 to a 140. But it's meaningless if you're trying to boost like from a 180 to a 240, because it's just like that boost is not going to make the difference.
I am a big fan of that type of successes in games. I really love the scaling success or like failure. It's where like, oh, you succeeded over on this metric. And also the idea of, instead of like, oh, you got a nat 20, the idea of like, no, you just are so sick with it, you actually over succeeded. It's like, I really like that.
Yeah, a lot of games do over success as well. I don't know, Anima's success thresholds feels better to me. I don't know exactly why. Maybe there's just some genius math there I haven't seen. But like in Pathfinder, for instance, if you want to over succeed a thing, you succeed by 10. Pretty simple, pretty easy. A lot of people like it. And I think it's pretty good. I think it works really well. But like, there's also technically like levels of success based on what multiple 10 you get. So like 20 is difficult, 30 is like heroic, and 40 is like demigod level of success. But the game doesn't really lean into it that much, and so it just doesn't feel like hitting those thresholds means anything, because more often what matters in the moment is if you get 10 over the DC that you're going for, you know. So in Anima though, these DCs in combat less so, but in like a lot of other things mean something. And as a GM, I can set difficulties. Like recently, players got attacked by a grenade, and the players wanted to grab the grenade and throw it out of the car before it exploded. But one, I knew the targets who were attacking them, so they weren't going to just leave a live grenade in someone's car for long. And two, the whole point was that it was supposed to look like an accident where their car exploded after flipping a few times off of a highway. So rather than like a DC of 80, which is a basic difficulty, I was like, well, it needs to be higher than that. But 120 didn't feel high enough, and 140, it's really not that different than 120. But 180 was like, okay, this is like at this level where the players are at, where they'd have to be really lucky or insanely good in order to do this. Like, it felt meaningful at that point because it was just so standardly above what the players would honestly be able to roll. Because I don't think either of you guys had 80 in your sleight of hand. And so even if they rolled 100, they wouldn't have been able to hit it. But granted, this is an open roll system. So neither of them succeeded. But because of that, it really made the scene impactful, because it's like, that's an insane DC for us GM. What's going on? It's like, yeah, what's going on? That's an insane DC for you guys to try to deal with.
Oh yeah. Like, it is a moment where it is, oh fuck. I did not believe I was gonna die, because I think that'd be, I know you're a better GM than to do the bit we were saying of, we just kind of forced the game to be a bunch of exposition and like lore dump, and then instantly killed for it. It's really funny, and that's not something you'd do. It'd be a challenge that we were either accepted, or this is meant to be a narrative thing of, well, yeah, who the fuck's trying to kill you? And now it's like, all right, shit, I have another thing to investigate. Who the fuck's trying to kill me? Yeah.
Okay. And the thing I'm very happy with is, because I made up the grenade stats on the spot, because I always do. I'm very happy that you guys almost died as much as you did.
Oh yeah, like we're in that state of like, I can believe that through sheer luck and maybe the fact that we're like a little cool, we're a little kind of mystical, we barely survived a grenade. I think it's funnier if like we went through this. It's probably better that Alicia's character didn't, because imagine having to explain, oh yeah, we were all in the same car, it exploded and all that. I took no damage.
Right.
Like, I am fully miraculously like uninjured.
Well, you might have taken some damage from the car accident itself, because you took some from the car rolling, but
you know, like the car exploded, both of us come out, we look like we got like literally mortared. And then there's this guy being like, and I'm okay. That'd be like, okay, well, how? What happened? It's also going to be very fun for Hawthorne to be like, get me out of this hospital. I don't want to be here because I could die.
Yeah, a nurse could walk in and kill you without you even knowing.
A nurse could leave the fucking window open. Like, if I don't demand endlessly that the blinds are shut constantly. And I don't even get to say that for 2 sessions, or not 2 sessions, 2 days, because my character's unconscious for 2 days because of the grenade. Yeah, it's It's gonna be funny. I think that'll be a very funny moment because if for whatever reason Booter's character reveals that like, oh yeah, by the way, I can heal magically, that is a pure okay, nurse, I'm leaving. I know I have 30 HP. I'm leaving. I have private care.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'll get fucking my soul rendered. I don't want that.
It's it was very fortuitous, like I said. I'm very happy that neither of you were at least at risk of instant dying. Yeah, because I would have had to have done some kind of cheese to make it where you don't die, and essentially like a scripted event.
Exactly. Like it is it was a way that made it even more legitimate because the dice just worked out really well.
Yeah. And I love when that happens. I love, like, you guys ate a legit grenade and barely survived. Which honestly plays in your guys' favor more than you know. So it's something that, again, like, in Pathfinder, I can kind of do stuff like that. I know the numbers in Pathfinder well enough. But in Anima, because we're working on such big number scales and because everything is so like math, you can create really fascinating moments where just like by pure game mechanical effect, I made it where you guys barely survived, you know. It was something where you guys, because in generally how I did it, I know 80 HP or LP is less than what you guys have for total life points. Most characters standardly have a little bit more than that. The idea is a grenade would normally kill a normal person. There is the multiplicative fact of, okay, but it's a grenade in a confined space, so it hits you with a final attack ability of 180. But you guys are partially immobilized, wearing your seatbelts, and unless you can deflect energy, you have to try to, or you might not even be able to, or yeah, you have to try to dodge it, which gives you a bigger penalty for dodging an area attack that you can't get out of.
Yeah, it's less like I'm gonna spot dodge the explosion and more of I'm going to try to make sure it doesn't hit the things that are vital to live.
Yeah. So I knew that whatever you guys would roll, statistically speaking, you're going to average. Well, one, your penalties aren't going to reduce either of your guys' defenses below 0, which is good. Well, I think it did kind of for Slug's character, but she rolled really well. And then statistically speaking, you guys are going to roll around a 50 on a D100 on average. Which is not technically how it works, but like on average, it's around 50. So if I consider the numbers, you're likely to get somewhere in the realm of like 60 to 80 on your defenses, which subtracting that from the attack will net you guys somewhere in the realm of 100% of the damage, maybe like 110 or 120, which is like 88, 96. And so 96, roughly speaking, is close to what you guys have for HP. So it was statistically, math-wise, supposed to be really close. And it was really good. But that's just because I'm good at math and a good GM in general. But it's because Anima has the math that it does that you can do things like that. In D&D, because a lot of attacks are just rolling a lot of dice, like bell curves being what they are very easy, but there's too many ways in D&D you can augment damage to be super crazy dangerous, and it can kind of get swingy sometimes, especially if there's a crit involved. Pathfinder has less overall dice and damage like modifiers, so that it's less scary, but it can still kind of have that. Anima can be really swingy, but if you generally know the swinginess, like, you can adjust. The scariest part literally would have just been the criticals. And the end result, all this kind of talk, kind of terminates at the point of, you guys almost died. Alex's character is unconscious for a couple days. What happened to your characters was honestly a very legit outcome for what you went through at that moment. Like, not everyone who is shot dies. Not everyone who is hit by a grenade dies. They are going to probably be in very serious critical condition, but they might not necessarily die if they succeed. And especially with player characters being slightly stronger than your average person, then it even leans in that favor more often. And so Anima just allows for a lot of really interesting creative moments that just don't exist in a lot of games, because in a lot of games they're just not as varied, they're more structured, and the game math sometimes just breaks down. Like in Dungeons and Dragons Pathfinder, you just get a bunch of health. It's just a game that gives you a bunch of HP. Like if you're past a certain level point, there's just a point where eating a grenade could not kill your character, because the game doesn't work that way and they want you to survive more than a round of combat, essentially. So getting fireballed at a certain point is no longer a lethal situation. Anima is almost not like that at all. Like, there are points later on where getting hit by a grenade might not outright kill your character, but it's still going to hurt, and with criticals being what they are, you're likely still going to get criticaled, and you could die from that critical if the dice allow it. So
if I rolled real bad, there's also the chance that, like, yeah, you get a limb permanently gone, or like, sorry, the critical location was your heart.
So yeah, this is my argument why Anima Beyond Fantasy is potentially probably one of the best TTRPGs out there. That is, I can't say my unbiased opinion, but I'm desperately trying to be unbiased, because I played a lot of games. I look into this like for a living, quote unquote. There's a lot of factors, and I think about TTRPGs literally all the time. It's just like the thing I do. And I just have not come across any other games that hit so many of the good points of Anima. Anima is a flawed game. It's got problems. I'm not saying it's perfect. I'm not saying it's perfect for everything, but Anima is not trying to be everything. Anima's not really like an omni system, even though you could technically do it that way. It's its own thing. It's its own experience. It's not generic fantasy. It's Anima's fantasy. And I wish more games did stuff like that. I wish games had more of an identity, more of a desire to make a world that's interesting and interconnected, and just give players the access to abilities that are so unique and fantastical that they can't help but make interesting characters. Because I'm gonna be honest, playing a spellcaster in most other TTRPGs is boring, because you're just picking from a list of spells. And honestly, most spells are not so unique that people would even really consider what you're casting. Like if I asked any of my players what spells they cast in the last campaign, they'd remember a couple that were memorable in the moment, but they would not be able to name even like more than a quarter of the spells they used over that game. Because so many spells are just different variations of damage and like debuff, essentially. So it's just one of those kinds of things. But yeah, that's gonna be it for us today. Alex, anything you want to leave us off with before we head out today?
No, if you're a big fan of lore and lore content, I'm gonna have a video coming out probably in a few days on the Great Hunger of Trench Crusade. Just what if you took the Plague faction and made them just want to eat you? It's pretty cool, pretty cool. I'll probably have something more in the works. I've just been so busy that it's hard to work on anything super long. So
as for me, I said I was going to do some videos. I did very much intend to do so. And then last week was incredibly busy for a lot of different reasons. And I might still be able to make something over the course of the weekend. I'm not sure yet, but I want to at the very least. But yeah, like last week, my daughter turned 1 year old, which is really fun. I spent almost an entire day making a bed, so she has her own bed now.
Aw.
And then one of our vehicles had some problems, and last we heard from the dealership that's looking at the car, we might have to replace the motor, which we're not going to do because that would be almost a waste of money at this point. So we bought another car.
Yeah, that's just a buy a new car moment.
So we got a new car, which is a really nice car, and it's honestly something we've been meaning to do. My wife found a car on Caravana that was like perfect. It was really cheap too, surprisingly, for as new and as good as a vehicle as it was. So yeah, this last week has been birthdays and car problems and just being busy in general. And I didn't get any time to do any tabletop stuff, so it is what it is. But yeah, thank you all so much for watching, and I guess we'll go ahead and say goodnight.
Good night.
Good night.